Learn the most advanced recruiting techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with Rick Girard.
Want to build an outstanding company? Start by caring about your people. When you really care about your employees, it transfers to your customers and your business. I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. Our mission is to discuss and deconstruct insights from top-performing entrepreneurs and industry experts. Every week, we uncover tested tactical solutions to solve your company's most difficult hiring challenges. So this is the first episode of the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. Today we have a very special guest kicking us off for the year, and his name is Paul David. Paul is the CEO of Indentified Talent Solutions. Paul, based in Irvine, California, Indentified Talent Solutions is a recruitment and human resources consulting firm. Paul himself has been featured in numerous business publications. His firm has been named one of the fastest growing private companies by the Orange County Business Journal and is listed in the Inc. 500. Impressive, my man.
Thank you.
I like it.
Thank you.
As the annual list of America's fastest growing private companies. Paul, great job, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Thanks, Rick. I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A pleasure to have you, and thank you for being our first guest of the new year. So I want to cover kind of the what, why, and how of caring about your people. I think it's a good place to start this year, especially with New Year's resolutions, new goals. So let's start with this. So let's talk a little bit about what does it mean to actually care about your people.
Well, first, Rick, thanks for letting me kick off your year. Hopefully, I do it justice and get the ball rolling.
Oh, you'll do a great job. I'm pretty sure of that.
But to answer your question about caring, I mean, it's simple, right? It's you got to care about your employees, right?
Yeah.
And there's really no there's no really complicated answer. You just got to care about them. And what does that mean? It's one, you got to know them, right? You got to engage in conversation with them.
Absolutely.
I think there's this really great quote by Theodore Roosevelt that said that people don't care about how much you know unless they know how much you care, right? And a lot of it is just
very true. That's bam, great quote.
So I mean,
look at you're already adding value. Theodore Roosevelt.
I'm trying my best, but that's exactly it. I think the importance of a leader is not just to lead them in the direction of the vision or the mission of a company, but it's also important that they lead them in the vision and the creation and the dreams of that individual person.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can do that is actually get to know them, engage on who they are, and look at them for not just the employee that is working for you or not just the vendor or the customer or whatever, but what is your actual goals? Not just in business, but what's your goals in life? What do you want to know? So
and really this goes down to kind of culture too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you've got a culture that even with a large culture, I mean, you've got to start caring about your people, and your people have to start caring about those people, and it's got to start where?
It has to start with leadership. Yeah. It absolutely has to start with leadership. I mean, I think too many times we talk about culture in organizations, and what they do is they're like, okay, well, culture. We have this really great culture that we provide snacks. We provide snacks all day and free dry cleaning, and you can play ping pong and all that stuff. That's not culture. Those are called perks. Right?
Yeah, those are nice to have.
Yeah, exactly. And what really it is culture, how it permeates through the. And it's weird to say this because it's the mind, body, and soul of the actual company. Yeah. How does it permeate through it? Yeah. And does that resonate your mission statement, right? And does that resonate who you are as a leader?
And by the way, those perks, which are great things too, are really designed to keep you there longer.
It's funny. I have a client. They're like, yeah, we give them free lunch. I'm like, well, how much does that cost you on production time? Because if I spend $2,000 on lunch, yeah. Well, they've already factored that increases production by $10,000 just for that, that spending $2,000. So it's not really a perk. It's actually just to keep them in the shop.
Exactly. So okay, does that really show caring? I don't know. I mean, feeding people, I think, is a piece of it if you're doing it from the right perspective. But But really, what is caring? Caring is listening and understanding what those people need.
It is. It is. I think part of this conversation, I think you said it best. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use the equation.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think you're a very accomplished business person yourself too, and you have a lot of clients. And I think if you didn't exactly know the client needs, then you wouldn't know how to fulfill what they're looking for. And I think that's the same thing with employees. If you don't know what their goals or accomplishments are within the company or even outside, if you want to take it a step further, to be quite honest with you, then how are you supposed to get them to be high-performing employees?
Yeah, and I think it's important to take this a step further. So why is it really important for you to care about your employees? From a ownership perspective, you should care about your employees just because even if you're not that great of a person, right, it does affect your bottom line.
Well, there's no problem with that here in this table.
No, I think we're wonderful people. And actually, our engineer, Paul's a wonderful guy.
Yeah, he is a wonderful guy.
The CEO of Uber is not such a wonderful guy, right?
It does have great technology.
Or the former CEO, I should say. He's got a bad rap. So, it does affect your bottom line.
Right.
If that's what you're focusing on in your business is bottom line, I mean, just think of it from that perspective.
Right. I think you asked the question, why is it important to care? Because, I mean, if you don't care about your employees, how are they supposed to care about your company? How are they supposed to care about your customers? How are they supposed to care about each other?
Yeah.
So I think everything permeates from the top down.
Well, and I think it's important you care about yourself.
Yeah, well, you do.
As a leader.
Right.
You've got to be able to foster your growth, and you've got to be able to provide more than just, hey, we need to get this work done, right?
Right.
And it's really hard as a business owner. I know you can attest to this because I've had this problem too, and I've made these mistakes where, man, you're just focused on production, and you got clients yelling at you, and you got to make the time to listen.
Right.
And then you get somebody kind of comes to you and says, well, guess what? I'm not happy. I'm leaving.
Right.
And it comes out of left field for you, but all the signs and everything was there. You just weren't listening.
Right. No, that's absolutely right. I mean, it's like, I did an article not too long ago on Inc. magazine, and they asked me a question, and basically my quote was like, it's not the product or services that build a company, it's the people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So Apple has really great phones, but they wouldn't fly off the shelves, or they wouldn't be made without great people in them. So
very true.
So we really need to make sure that we're focusing on the fulfillment of the people. A recent study that was done is showing that a lot of employees lack fulfillment. It's not about the pay or the money or anything like that. It's just they lack fulfillment in the job. Right?
And that stems from, like, everybody complains about millennials. We had somebody on the show last week complain, about, or prior to the new year, about talking about millennials, and she's the millennial whisperer, and she understands them really well. But even up to our age, I mean, it starts to become more important. Mm-hmm. Fulfillment is such a big thing.
Right.
And if you care about people's fulfillment, they will thrive, and your company will grow.
Right. It's I might be getting off topic here, but it sparked something. I was at this like kind of private Tony Robbins conference on Monday, and then
that's because you're a baller.
I don't know about that, but he
private Tony Robbins.
Well, it wasn't private. It was like like he does those big shows, but it was I was invited. I was invited. I wasn't. So
that's okay.
But what he talked about was we lost this national treasure, and the national treasure was named as Robin Williams, right?
Oh,
and
okay.
then and he asked people to raise their hands, or like, hey, raise your hands if you really, really love Tony Robbins, and like half the room raised their hands because he was an incredible actor. He was incredible what he did, but then he killed himself, right? So he had all these accomplishments.
Oh, Robin Williams.
Robin Williams.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
You said Tony Robbins.
Oh no, Robin Williams.
Yeah,
so he was talking about I was talking about Robin Williams.
Got it.
That we lost this national treasure.
You got it.
Not Tony Robbins. He's alive and well.
I don't want people sending me messages going, "Hey, when did Tony Robbins die?"
Okay. Robin Williams, and he had all these accomplishments, and yet he didn't feel fulfilled. So, accomplishment and success without fulfillment doesn't really mean anything.
Ooh. Boom, there's a teachable moment. I'm going to steal that one from Rick Franzi's show.
You know what? It is patented, so I get a royalty every time you put it on the show.
Nice. All right, so, again, why it's important. I mean, it does affect your bottom line, engagement, productivity. People, coming into an environment where people are happy and they want to be there
Yeah.
is so much better than walking into an environment where people have their hoodies on, their heads down, they want to talk to you.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Or they look like they're busy when you go walking by.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've met with clients like that where you walk into the environment and they're telling you about how great their culture is. You go in, and as soon as like the leader of the company kind of starts walking by, they look really busy and they pick up the phone. And they don't want to engage.
Right.
And you know, that's just not a good environment. You don't have the loyalty.
It's not. I don't think it's. I think it's really a shame that I'm in human resource consulting. And I think it's really a shame that a lot of employees joke about like, oh my gosh, it's human resources. Are they carrying around a box? And why do they cower and get scared every time a human resource person comes by? I know
they're supposed to be there to help, right?
Well, human resources are there to manage the talent and the people of the company.
Yeah.
The last thing that the talent and the people of a company need to be scared of are the people that are supposed to be working for those people.
So true.
Right. So it's
and most human resource people that I meet are nice people.
They're nice people, right? They're nice.
They get a bad rap.
They do, and I'm sorry they get that, but I don't know if people agree with me, but if an employee base is scared of a human resource department within a company, that's really something that you need to take a look at, because they should not be scared of human resources.
And I will tell you, that comes from the top down.
Yeah, that does come from the top down.
Yeah,
that's
right. So, I mean, if they're scared of human resources, they're also scared usually of the leadership.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We're talking to Paul David, CEO of Indentified Talent Solutions. When we come back, what we've been talking about so far is why it's important to care about your employees.
When
we come back, now we're going to give you some ideas how to apply some of this to your business and where it starts. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Higher Power with Rick Girard, giving you access to recruiting techniques that will help you hire key talent to build your company towards real success. Rick is a recruiting executive and entrepreneur who's been successfully recruiting in the aggressive Silicon Valley technology landscape for the past 2 decades. After a very successful stint at Apogee, he founded Stride Search in 2012. Based on a lean efficiency model, Stride has uniquely positioned itself as a leader in retained search for the most critical talent hires within a small organization. Whether you're a startup executive or recruiting professional, by listening to Higher Power with Rick Girard, you will walk away with skills to help you attract and hire great talent. Now back to Higher Power with Rick Girard.
And welcome back to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and today our guest is Paul David, CEO of Indentified Talent Solutions, an Inc. 500 company. Super impressive. I'm jealous. So we just discussed why it's important to care for your employees and kind of the reasons, well, actually the bad things that happen if you don't, right? So now we're going to share with our audience kind of how we can apply this to our business. Let's share with them some ideas on how to start caring about your employees, starting with leadership, right?
Right. Yeah, it's always, anytime you run a company, anytime you run a business, anytime you run a department, anytime you run any person.
Yeah.
I mean, even your household. I mean, like we don't have to stop at just a business. I mean, this is a relationship thing. So like even, we're not talking about a household, but even in the household, leaders need to be able to care about their people. And I guess, how do you apply that to your business? Well, first thing is there's not rocket science. You just start caring about the person.
So, and here's the thing, there's such thing as too much caring.
Oh yeah.
You can overcare about people,
right?
Especially when you care about people who don't care about themselves. That's kind of a tough scenario. Right. So there's some of that management of caring that needs to kind of take place, right? We're getting really deep here.
Yeah. No, that's funny that you said that. I had a mentor a long time ago when I was younger, and he said like, hey, you know what? Care, just don't care that much. And I'm like, all these years, I'm like, what the hell does that mean? I mean, after all these years, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, not care that much? So, like, not care at all, and I couldn't translate that. But you touch a point that's actually absolutely accurate. You can only care as much as that employee, that other person is willing to give you back, right?
Yeah.
You can give all your heart, but you can't want it more than they want it themselves.
Yeah.
And that's where your barrier stops, right? If you know that you gave 100% of all your efforts, and they're still not moving, well then you did what you could.
You know, I have a friend who's a social worker, and he works with kids,
Yeah.
And who are, you know, foster kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you know, he tells them, and I thought that was really, really powerful. He said, you know, I'm here to support you and I care for you, but nobody's going to work harder on yourself than you are.
Yeah.
I'm not working harder than you are for you. And so I think that's kind of like I guess that boundary line that you have to set.
Right.
Right.
I you know, again, that's a really great point, Rick. I think as leaders too, we have to constantly improve ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We can't ask of our employees if we're not willing to do it ourselves, right? If we ask them to go through the fire, we have to be right there with them, or sometimes in front of them.
Yeah. And I've made the mistake of actually asking them to go through the fire in the past, and then pushing them through first.
Right.
You've got to be willing to walk through hand in hand, right? Like,
right.
hey, go through the fire. Let me know how it is over there.
Right.
You know, that was one of my mistakes that I think that I've made a couple times in my you know, maturing of a leader. You know.
Yeah.
So let's start. Where does this start? Okay, so in my mind, caring about people really starts at the interview process, right? And I feel like the interview process, and I talk about this quite a bit, is very transactional. It's very, hey, we have a need, you want to do it, here's some money, boom, right? And for some situations that's great, but when you're trying to build a culture, and when you're trying to build a company that's gonna where everybody's critical, it's kind of the wrong way to do it.
Right.
I mean, you really have to invest that time up front with that person, showing them that you care about them as a person.
Right. I you know, when you start talking about it, it's from the top. It's from the top down.
Yeah.
First, you know, when we're going through those interview process, I think there's a lot of situations that I get into with hiring managers or, you know, with leaders, which I don't even know if they know what their defined culture is. Right.
Yeah.
So if they're going to try to analyze, if they're going to try to go through an interview process, and we're like, hey, I'm going to tell you about our culture, and they don't really know what their culture is, then how are they going to stay congruent through that interview process, through the time of hire, through the time of employment, and then the time of fire? I mean, like, how does they stay
how are they going to know what kind of person's going to fit?
Right.
If you don't know your foundation, how are you going to build a base?
Right. And who is doing the job of propagating that within their company, right?
Yeah.
That culture needs to be permeated through the top all the way down, so everyone's echoing the same thing.
Yeah.
So and what that takes constant emotional involvement and repetition. You have to constantly put out, what does this company stand for?
Yeah.
What are we trying to achieve? What are their goals? And what are we going to do of service to the rest of the people? And that has to be the culture, you know.
And again, that's thrown back on leadership, and
it is.
Yeah.
And then when you get into this interview process, it's like, how do you know that this candidate is a culture fit if you don't know what the culture is?
That's, you know, and because that happens far too often.
Right.
They make hiring decisions based on skills.
Absolutely. So it becomes like, you know, a menu. It's like, okay, do you have lettuce? Do you have cheese? Do you have 2 buns on a sesame seed, bun? I mean, like, okay, yeah, he has that. He must be great.
We should hire him.
And that's exactly right. No mayo. He doesn't have mayo though, but we can work with it.
I'm not a big fan of mayo, so you're not going to get an argument from me. But the burger doesn't do much for me since I'm a vegetarian.
Okay, we'll get a buka burger.
Those are gross. Oh, I didn't say that on air, did I? Anyway, so investing your time to get to know the person. I think in the interview process, it's really important that you find out about what the person's kind of issues are with their current role, where they're looking to go and grow in their career, and see if it fits with what your opportunity is. Right.
And you know, the approach that we take, either if we're interviewing for our own company or if we're interviewing for a different company, we obviously have to understand the culture.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, we have to understand that, you know, we need to come from a place with what could our company give to this person that's actually interviewing.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of times what happens is an employer takes a standpoint on, what are you going to give to me? Okay, what kind of skill sets, what kind of work are you going to add to my business?
And that doesn't work in a competitive work environment anymore.
It doesn't. We need to figure out, okay, so this is the goal of the employee. This is the goal of the candidate that's interviewing. This is what they want to create in their career. This is what they want to do. This is what they want to work.
Yeah.
Now, could my company or the department or what have you offer that to the candidate? If it can, then fantastic. Let's move forward. But if it can't, then let's evaluate.
Then we need to be honest about it.
Absolutely.
And then, again, you're listening to what that person wants, and you're just being honest with yourself about it. Look, you don't need to make bad hires, people.
Right. You don't.
Make good hires.
It costs less.
It costs so much less.
Then you don't have to hire recruiters like us all the time to refill your bad hires. You know?
Yeah.
So.
And then, you know what? Okay, and then just to, we end up taking the rap for it, right? A company makes a bad hire, right? And it's not the recruiter's fault. They're just providing.
It's absolutely our fault. Yeah. We should know in the matter of an hour and a half conversation if this girl or guy is going to perform to the best of their ability through the next 5 years. We need to know that in an hour conversation. It is our fault. Okay. I'm being facetious though, right?
I will. It's shared responsibility, because I think as a recruiter, you should know your candidate well enough to be able to present them, to know that there's a fit, that there's an ability. But ultimately, what it does come down to is that if it's a transactional process, which most recruiting transactions are, then you have a situation where I'm just trying to get resumes to you,
right?
And you're going to make a hire, and I just want to make my money,
right? And
again, it's his fault, because he got us the candidate that didn't stick, right?
Right.
So that's.
I think environment. It is a shared responsibility. When a recruiter gives a candidate to a company or a client or even our internal company, we go based on what we're told, and we go based on what they're looking for, right? We find the right candidate. But once they're in that environment, I mean, you can take some of the most incredible CEOs of Fortune 50 companies and put them into a bad environment, and they're gonna fail. It's not. Usually the reason people fail is because of the environment they get into.
Yeah, and whether or not they have the ability to change that environment. Yeah. Because again, I think if you took CEOs, they would probably gut it and redo it. They would replicate what worked.
Right.
But if you took somebody who's maybe at a director level and they're really good and they get into a team of, a toxic environment,
right,
they're going to fail.
Right. I guess what I mean is you mentioned that I run a Inc. 500 company. I do. We grew almost 1,400% in the last 3 years.
Like that plug?
Yeah, like that. I'm 1,400% in the last 3 years. But if you take me standing at, I'm going to say 5'7", I'm really 5'6", but and put me in an NBA basketball court with I'm probably going to fail.
Can you jump high though?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well, then you probably will.
Yeah. So
if you can't dunk, there's really never.
I'm not sure if that's the best example, but environment really.
I get your analogy.
It's really important.
So so the other thing, so starting at the interview, getting to know the person is really important. Okay. Now the other thing is really important is make sure you have an interview structure that is bringing to the surface the truth about the candidate.
Yeah.
Right. You want to get rid of those canned answers like, where do you want to be in 5 years? Oh,
sure.
I want to be in your job.
Right.
you want to ask behavioral questions that will actually give you insight onto how that person will essentially do in your role, how they're congruent with your culture, how they're congruent with how they're going to handle customers or whatever they need to do. Rather than and dig deeper on those. And when you listen to people and you have them tell you about things, okay, well, great. How did you handle that? And were there any other avenues that you thought that you might have took? Why didn't you try this? And you make it a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
That shows that you care about that person too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those type of questions when you're really listening and delving into how somebody solves problems. Again, it's showing that you care.
Right.
And just changing that little piece is, I think, something that every company should implement into their interview process.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with what you're saying.
And then I think the final thing is, as you're looking at and evaluating a candidate, and you mentioned this before, you want to focus on how they're going to be able to grow.
Mm-hmm.
If they can grow in your organization and they're a good fit, then that's probably going to be a good hire.
Right.
But if they're going to do the same thing they did in their current job, in your new job, why would you want to hire them?
Wait. So you're saying, why would you want to hire a person if
there's no growth opportunity? I mean,
the reason why I'm confused is why would you want to hire someone if there's no growth in that opportunity?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I mean, the only reason that you would want to hire someone if there's no growth is someone just wants to go in there and just do some work, collect a paycheck, and go home.
Yeah.
But are you going to have a high performing employee at that point, or a high performing person at that point? Probably not. They're just there to collect a paycheck. Again,
and that's good for some organizations. Not good if you're trying to grow a company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's my point.
Yeah.
So, awesome. So. And with that, we're just about out of time for today's show. It goes by so quickly. Paul, I want to thank you for your time investment today, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio community. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rick. Really appreciate it.
Now, I'm sure that some of our listeners are definitely want to get in touch with you. Do you want to tell a little bit about Indentified Talent real quickly and how somebody can reach you?
Yeah, identifiedtalent.com. You can. Our general email is identified@identifiedtalent.com, and
with it identified with
the
D at the end.
Yeah, identified. Yeah. So past tense identified, like we have already identified you. So
I see what you're going there.
So yeah.
And what do you guys specialize in?
We are 90% on a healthcare vertical, so
nice.
Non-clinical and clinician. So basically every hospital in Orange County we work with.
And, nice. Yeah. And soon to be global.
Yes, that is the goal.
All right. And then people can also follow you on Instagram, right?
Yeah, I have.
You have like 1 million followers or something?
No,
Half a million.
No. I'm my handle, my screen name on Instagram is paulmichaeldavid.com. That's all my names, paulmichaeldavid.com.
Okay, sounds great. So I want to thank our listening audience for tuning in to today's episode. I'd like to take a quick moment to thank our team who did a great job last year and looking forward to this year. Our engineer, Paul Roberts, who you guys can't see on video, but that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, Paul.
Our producer, Andrea Ballin, Shanti Ryle, and our executive producer, Kim Iverson. To listen to this show and any past episodes, you can check us out on higherpowerradio.com. That's HIREPOWERRADIO.com, or Higher Power Radio on iTunes. Follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook at Higher Power Radio Show, or you can follow me on Twitter at Rick_Gerard. Also, I'm on Instagram too. I probably should put that. We have another great show lined up for you guys next week. I want to wish all of you guys a productive first week in business. I'm your host, Rick Gerard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power with Rick Gerard on OC Talk Radio.